I'm too sexy for my shirt, too sexy for my shirt, so sexy it hurts.
Hello Ghana and welcome to the Easter edition of your favorite show hosted by females, captured by women. Today we have lined up for you very interesting topics. We'll be looking at the Easter celebrations and whether we should learn to commercialize it as is done in foreign countries. We'll look at safety. We'll also talk about tourist sites and protecting them so that we don't have any disasters during this interesting time. Then we'll also look at the vigilante group who has been making news all week. Delta Force, now known as the Delta 13. We know they escaped from the court sometime and they reported themselves back to the police and were arraigned before court sometime this week. We'll look at, is it a situation that they're too grounded to be uprooted? As it is said, are they too rooted to be uprooted? We'll look at that. Then finally, we'll also talk about President Akufo-Addo's ban on buying state vehicles when members of parliament are leaving office. We want to see, is this sustainable? Is it even feasible, to say the least? We have been proudly sponsored by Tinatet Herbal, producers of Tinatet Turmeric Mixture and Venicare, as well as Grand Rice Food Company Limited, producers of Leap Tomato Paste. I am Nanama, and today I'm in studio with Priscilla and Susan. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Well, on the spin, we're discussing Easter celebrations. We know that now Easter is gradually being commercialized. Well, not to the extent that is done in the foreign countries, such as sales of Easter bunnies and, Easter eggs. But we're looking at it. Is it something we should start learning? Because we know that when foreigners come to the country, they go to Kwewu to enjoy paragliding and some other festivities. It's something maybe we should start looking at. Susan, your take.
Well, it's a religious festival. And it is an important one in Christendom. I mean, if not the most important one in Christendom, had Christ not resurrected, it would have been the same as any other religions, a prophet. He would have been a prophet. But this is what makes him Christ, that he's still alive. So actually commercializing it, for me, is a little bit of a worry because we need to emphasize more on the spirituality of it. But in terms of, getting a benefit, apart from the spiritual benefit, maybe an economic benefit, I would say, yes, why not? I mean, it's a festival that is there. If we can make an economic benefit from some of the festivities that go on, in terms of the paragliding, etc., 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 people going back to their roots to bond. Is it something that we can enhance so that tourists, there'll be a lot of tourism in that? I think yes, that ought to be done. Maybe that when it's Easter, people do go back to their hometowns, etc., their family gatherings. It may be an opportunity for tourist sites to boost, the inland tourism in terms of what is there, and then if people get back, they can patronize it and enjoy it as it is. So, yes, in that respect, I believe that yes, let's make some money, let's boost the economy out of it. Kowo has, it's always the Kowo Easter. But when I was young, we used to go to Anyako every Easter. And Anyako is a beautiful place. It's almost like an island. You have the sea on one side, you have the lake on the other, and not many people know about it. I'm sure the people in Anyako, they would be happy if that, it could be enhanced so that they could get more people going there and then boost the local economy there.
Yeah, very well. I do agree with Susan. I think if anything at all, we should always not forget the focus for that season. It's about Christ. But even if people have to travel to their hometowns and whatnot, at least if there were some festivities that were commercialized so that we make some profits out of it and boost the economy in general, maybe it would be good. More, the tourist attraction sites, if we make sure they are safe enough for people to visit. And during that time, I mean, it's one of the times where we get a break from work, most people. So it's a nice time to travel and do some sightseeing alongside the spiritual benefits you gain from it. So yes, it's something we can always look at. I'm just wondering if the sale of Easter bunnies and Easter eggs would be relevant for our situation, because we don't see the relationship between those things. There's no significance for personally. So I think we definitely are not looking at those specific things, but we could look at other things that are that pertain to our culture that are interesting and could be sold during that time. Prissy.
Yeah, I think it's the festivity comes with a lot of commercial activities as it's were already. I mean, people who go to Kwewu or people who go to Anyako, as you say it, or whatever, normally would patronize goods and services of wherever they find themselves. But the commercialization becomes individual. It's just private businesses who can make stuff out of it, but not on a national level. On the national level, I think safety of the tourist sites comes to play. And here, perhaps, the National Tourism Board can look at it, make sure that tourist sites are up to scale in terms of inspection to make sure they are safe, because like you say, people get to go on break from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's a long one, and so people would like to do things of leisure, albeit still be morning, so the hotels should be brought up to speed. Tourist sites should be safe so that people can take some leisure during this period. So safety for me is key, in line with our tourist sites.
Yeah. The safety, again, road safety is very important because people travel. So we are, I mean, I've heard the, is it not Road Safety Commission, they've embarked on some campaigns, so I wish they continue. I'm lauding that effort, but I pray, I want to entreat us, it's up to the individuals. Make sure you are driving safely so that the other person too is safe, because when you're reckless, then you put everyone else in danger. And I think eventually you get to your destination, so let your speed limits work. When you get to a place where the speed limit is quoted, please follow it. Know that you're breaking a law if you don't, and you can be punished for that.
Well, I mean, if we're still talking about safety, let's also talk about sexual safety. You know, people tend to let go and may end up being adventurous with their sexual relations. So we would urge that people would also take that kind of safety into consideration. But I think that it's the first that I've heard of an insurance company that is insuring all those who are going to Kowu against accident and whatever. And I think that is a good thing. I would hope that the other insurance companies will take a cue from that and do likewise for all our tourist sites, so that people believe that if they went to some of these sites and they were injured, you know, there will be some compensation, you know, or some relief for them. That is an important development, and I guess we're happy for it. We want more of that to happen.
And whilst we admonish the drivers, I think the passengers can also speak up when they feel that the driver is not driving correctly or is going is over speeding, you know, at an outrageous speed. The passengers should insist that the driver does the right thing, and they should agitate. They shouldn't just think that their lives are just in the hands of the driver and the driver can't do anything. If they get to a police check and they can report, they should report if they sense that.
But to that, I've noticed when you board a public transport, very few people tend to comment on the speed. I mean, they may say, oh, you're speeding, but let it go. But I want to entreat passengers that you have the right. You pay for it. It's not free. Even if it were free, it's your life at risk. And you know what you have. You know the value you place on yourself. So no driver has the right to threaten you, you know, mommy, oh yeah, I miss you, that kind of thing. And they feel when you do that. Exactly. That's my respect.
I mean, that one, it should be a collective. So there's not only you who will be left in the middle of nowhere.
Even if it's not collective, know that the majority is not always right. You, the minority, if you think your life is at risk, you can always opt to get down and insist on it. Don't be threatened thinking, if they leave me here, what am I going to? You may never get to your destination in the first place. You know, so know that you have the power and the authority to do so. But again, if you do have to sit in the car up to a point where you meet a police checkpoint, you can always alert them that you're not happy with the way the driver is, you know, handling the vehicle, and then see what happens thereafter. I hope the police would be, you know, responsive.
In fact, I think police visibility should also be on the high during this season. We want to see them everywhere. Yes, they also have to celebrate Easter, but we beg them to make some sacrifices for us. We want to see them on the streets. We want to know that they are everywhere. When they see clusters, let's know that police people are, you know, just within few minutes, meters away and all, radius away. Yeah.
And security at church. I mean, the reason is God. People will visit church, but when these gatherings happen, that's when perpetrators are found, and thefts and robberies and all that, because they know you've left home, so the house is empty. So again, the visibility from police should be on the high, and then individuals should also take care to ensure that their homes are safely, you know, secured. Their churches, their bags, don't leave things around, and do take care of yourself during this season.
Well, moving away from safety, I think that quite a few of our foods are becoming extinct. Maybe this would be an opportunity to have food festivals where foods that we don't eat anymore, you know, we could showcase them. I mean, our children are now want to eat rice all the time. I mean, you know, a lot of children will eat rice 3 times a day, and if you offer them something different, they're like, you know. But I think this is an opportunity to showcase some of our food, especially those that are becoming extinct, you know, and give them nice names. I mean, really, you don't have to call it potom poto if you want.
Well,
I mean,
it's called Irish stew.
Oh well, or some casserole or something. I mean, or you can put a name to it. Call it Susan's Delight. I mean,
but Susan, why you have to change the names for the children to eat? We will call it in potom poto, and you will eat.
So, but I think that since our foods are becoming extinct, you know, and we are drifting away, and we want to eat the fried rice and the, you know, and the jollof rice.
But it's not becoming extinct for becoming extinct sake. I mean, to cook in potom poto takes a whole lot of time before the cocoyam becomes soft and all of that.
You know, you could use potato. You could use Irish potato.
You know what?
You could use
We are going Ghana.
Okay.
No,
So
but actually, potom poto doesn't take that much time. I mean, you know, if you were doing a stew and then you know, and cooking rice, it will probably take us a much time, because all you're doing is in potom poto.
It's harder to and the mother who's going to have to do this may have to rush off to work. That's how come it's becoming extinct. But on a time where they have this freedom, you know, the luxury to do,
but
definitely.
You see, that is why the children are eating rice and eating rice.
But something like apapransa, to cook it on a family scale is seemingly difficult and not economically wise, as against if you visited a restaurant and they had prepared and treat them to taste it.
I think we need to get newer recipes. I mean, in the past you had to do a benkwan, you had to do the palm soup.
From scratch.
But these days you can do the palm stew and use the stew to do your papansa. And the tom brown, you buy it commercially, you put the tom brown in, you pour in your the thing. And anyway, I mean, I think that, you know, just a little more time, and we would enjoy some of these
is just
foods.
thick abenquine. You're allowed to become thick.
Anyway, you've heard us on the Easter celebrations. The reason for this season is Christ. We do entreat that we all keep ourselves safe. Safe trip to those who are going to Kwewu and traveling to their hometowns. We pray that we'll all live to see the other days and enjoy the Ghana that the government is creating for us and you are creating for yourself. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Do stay tuned.
Welcome back, viewers. So on Big Bang 1, we're sustaining the discussion on the Delta Force issue and matters arising thereof. So we know that 13 escaped from the Kumasi Circuit Court and they surrendered themselves at a bench warrant declaring them wanted. We see that their demeanor and you know, composure has calmed down. Indeed, they have been punished, or punishment or sentences have been meted out to them. This is not for the substantive or the prima facie case. This is for allowing themselves to be freed from the grips of the law. What they did was that they assaulted the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, and this is what has led to, you know, all these issues. People are saying that the punishment meted out to them is too soft. Others are thinking it's an indication of what the real punishment will be for the actual crime perpetrated. Ladies, the Delta Force 13. The 13 Delta Force members and their
sentences, as it were, 200 penalty points, signing of bonds and all of that. But this is for allowing themselves to be freed from the grips of law, not for the substantive matter itself. Your thoughts?
Which is, I mean, I'm happy you keep mentioning that this is for allowing themselves to be freed, which I have come to understand is only captured as a misdemeanor.
No, right.
Whereas the other allegations or the other crimes, as it is, have not yet been factored into this dealing. So it's important that viewers and all of us understand, because then it plays a role in understanding whether you think the sentence meted out is fair or not. People have put this side by side with the Muntie 3 cases and some other cases. Personally, yes, I mean, when I heard of 200 points, blah, 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 I thought it was a little on the loose side or very lenient. But then again, when I understood that was for the misdemeanor, because I'm not a lawyer, I can't explain exactly what the punishments for each of these things are supposed to be. But then the fact that they came out with some punishment means this is what the law permits, okay? And so I personally think, okay, I hope then that the other offenses will be punished as it requires. And so if it's going by the law, I personally don't have any problem with it. People have come to say maybe the judges were corrupted. Then that goes into trusting what the courts then are doing, the judiciary system. And I think that goes beyond, say that we are long past that. We're in a democratic nation. We hope that the judiciary cannot be corrupted. I pray they are incorruptible, and that was what led to this decision of the penalty fine of 2,400 per person with the other bonds and signing of. And this is because they are first-time offenders as it stands with this particular allegation. So, yes, I think
but
we should allow the law
it doesn't necessarily have to be because they're corrupted. It's also because they are afraid. The judge could be afraid. And
that could be in any instance. Then it doesn't have to be
we are talking about in this particular case.
Why would the judges be afraid?
But you are there, and they come and then they assault you, and then they go away. It was a frightening situation. I mean, if I was a judge, I would be frightened. You know, and this
but
is
if the judge, for me, if the judge was frightened, then they wouldn't even sit on the case and, you know, give this. Yes.
Yeah,
so
but
why then would you say
I know, but I'm saying that you are saying that you hope that the judge is not corruption. That's why they've been lenient. And I'm saying that it doesn't have to be corruption. It could also be fear. I mean, you could.
Then they are not going according to law.
No, you see, they are going according to the law. But well, they said the law is an ass. You could always interpret it in a particular way, or you could be always lenient. I mean, there were choices. I think that there was a 3-year. You could do the penalty points, or in lieu of that, you could do 3 years. I don't know how that works, but I'm just saying that if I were a judge, given the history of what some of the judges in this country have been through, I could be fearing for my life, and I could be as gentle as possible, you know, instead of being as stern or as harsh as possible. So for me, it could be both ways. 2,400 for me, I thought it was a joke. You know, and you see, it wasn't just freeing themselves that you say maybe that's a misdemeanor, but it was an assault on the judge. I mean, you could...
But these 13, you see, I need clarification because the 13 did not free themselves. They were freed by 8 people.
Yeah,
exactly. So we need that distinction.
Yes, but I mean, they could have stayed. No, they could have chosen not to go.
So just to make your arguments, you know, the 8 who freed the 13, because you see, even when I heard it, I said, allowing yourself to be freed. I was telling myself, so what if at gunpoint, I hold certain information, I'm in custody, and my stakeholders who fund me come at gunpoint and are trying to take me out.
But they didn't come at gunpoint
that's
to them.
That,
so it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, so defining it as allowing yourself to be freed. I think that is why it was a misdemeanor. But
that's why I'm saying that. That's why I'm saying that.
So it's the you
can the prosecutor or whoever is listening could probably look at the statutes and take a lesser one and decide to take something that's a misdemeanor instead of something that is a felony, etc., etc. I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, you know, I'm sure for a lot of crimes, there are certain choices in which you can make, and some choice that you would make will mean a lesser punishment. I mean, for instance, let's say it's the murder one or manslaughter. You still ended up killing somebody, you understand? But it's a lesser sentence, and that will depend on whatever case that is going on, or who is prosecuting, or what kind of horse trading has gone on. Okay, so I'm saying that for me, I thought that 2,400 was a joke, and that that there could have been stiffer punishments for people to have a deterrent. Look, I can bet you none of those boys will pay that 2,400 themselves. Somebody will finance it and write a check, and they probably won't feel it. You get it?
I'm sure.
If I know how the politics in this country runs, none of them is going to take it out of their pocket.
I mean, but Susan, on that score, sometimes if someone is arrested, it is their family who will bear the cost to bring them out, regardless of the political color. So let's say, yes, maybe financiers will come and build them out, but it won't be out of space where people are arrested, but it's other people who actually pay.
What I'm saying is that it may not be a deterrent enough when you will get other people to, it's for me, it's peanuts. I mean, you can have a different opinion. I am saying that a totality of 31,200 for somebody like Chairman Wuntumi is pocket change. You get it. He's not going to feel it. You get it. So for some of their financiers, it probably is nothing anyway. You want something that is a deterrent from people. That is why we have prisons. That's why we have sanctions. That's why we have punishments, so that people standing outside don't take that same action. If it's not a deterrent, I mean, look, if I want to assault a judge, I can even assault 2 judges for 5,000 and get. I mean, I still get changed. I mean, like Susan, you get it.
Your point has been well made. For me, two things. Punishment is relative. Somebody who is homeless, who goes and commits a crime, a prison sentence will be heaven for them, because they need somewhere to lay their head, albeit the prison circumstance may not be the best. They probably just need a shelter over their heads. Were the judges afraid? I do not think so. Are the judges corrupt? I think there are ranges of punishments that can be meted out for a particular charge, and their offenses were defined. They said allowing themselves to be freed. They said conspiracy to commit crime. These are some of the things they said. And so for such laid down crimes, there are laid down penalties, and those penalties have ranges. Let's look at also their composure, even in London, I mean abroad. If you bring somebody before court and the person is remorseful, and the person saves you the trouble of going through an investigation and everything, you plead guilty right away, they are quite considerate. Now, first of all, this is their first time offenders. We're also saying that our prisons are getting full. So let's try and define punishments accordingly, so we don't just lump people in there. We don't even define the kind of cells that people we just go and throw people in there. So there's a range of punishment that they could be served, and they have been meted out with these punishments. I don't think that it is a small punishment, first of all, because they are not the 8 who actually freed themselves. Number 2, the actual substantive matter is also yet to be dealt with. Perhaps we are worried because we think that this gives an indication of what the actual punishment will be, that the actual punishment may also be lenient or may also be whatever. But the fact that we are talking about it is good enough, so that people know that we are expecting something more serious for the actual crime perpetrated. So for allowing themselves to be freed and everything, first timers, there's a range of punishment that could be meted out to them. They are actually not the 8 who free themselves. I think it's all right.
But my problem is, in the current dispensation, I want to believe that the judges are not afraid. And this I say because they know that people, there's so many lawyers who will look into these things. So, of course, if they came out with a sentence or a punishment that was way below what they deserve, then they may get people investigating, and inquiries will be raised, and whatever legal procedures may be taken to overturn
way
their decision.
Below what they deserve means that we should have a review of the punishments that is assigned to a particular charge.
Exactly.
Because for a particular charge, there has to be a range of punishments, and all those ranges must suffice. It's at the discretion of the judge to use maybe the very least or the very apex.
Yeah.
But the point is, it must be commensurate. So if it's way below, then it means that really
That's a
that crime has
problem.
not been defined properly, because the
Exactly.
sanctions, you know, to be meted for that crime, you are saying is way below. No.
Exactly, which is difficult. I mean, you've taken the horse out of my. That's exactly
But
what
I'm
I
not
mean,
saying
it'd be
it's way
difficult.
below. I'm saying that it is not
You
punishable.
said 2,400
if it's a range,
is
if it's
peanut
a range,
for them. So
yeah.
if they paid,
Yeah.
they wouldn't feel to you.
They wouldn't pay
feel
it themselves. I
yes.
can bet you that they will not pay it themselves.
So,
and like
Susan,
you said,
my
there's a
point
range
is-
of punishments. You understand? So you have the least to the maximum. For me, this may be the least of it, and I feel that it's small.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I
that's
haven't
it.
changed
It's-
anything you have
I'm
said.
our
All
opinion.
I'm
That's our
saying
opinion.
is that 2,400 for you because you think it's going to come out from the financier's pocket or whatever. But I think a punishment is a punishment. And if the person does not feel remorseful in the first place, then whatever court you put on it is not going to change the fact that it's a
But you see,
punishment.
looking at
which
the
is
political
where we want to
coloring
come
of
from.
Others. It's not about. I'm not talking
Yes,
about
but
remorse.
if
You
it's
say I'm not talking about
10,000 CD, if
I'm
you
not
get
talking
to
about
the point,
remorse here. Like, I
agreed, you're
never
talking
talked
about
remorse.
deterrence, but then it will get to a point where no punishment then may be a deterrence for somebody else, because you can say go to jail for 3 years. I may not care going to jail for 3 years, but someone else may. And so deterrence in really it's
Then-
relative to a larger scale. But
Then
for
we
me,
shouldn't- then we should
if
not- then
the
we shouldn't
law,
do it.
no, that's
Then
what
we
I'm
shouldn't
saying.
do
No,
anything.
you can't say we shouldn't do
No,
anything.
but-
Exactly.
no, but you-
but
that's
that's the
what you-
point.
that's
We
what
have
you
to do
said.
something. And so
Uh-huh.
if the
So
law,
once
if the
you've done
punishment
something-
meted out is for the
But once
crime
you've
that
done
has been
something,
spelt out,
once
then
you-
that's
once
fine
you've
by
done-
me.
Yes, but that is why you said by you, and I have expressed an opinion contrary to
Which
that.
I haven't argued
Uh-huh.
away.
So-
I'm saying this is also my opinion, where I think 2,400 for misdemeanor, being a first-time offender, where you were taking out of a situation you may not have necessarily wanted to. For me, I think it's
For
as
me,
the law
for
should
me,
be.
the conversation is interesting because I want to see the charge against the 8
Exactly.
who actually obstructed justice, who actually went into the court, who actually did this vandalism against the court itself. Now also something that comes to mind. You know, this is supposed to be a political crime. So where you have persons like Kenny Japan coming out to say nothing should be done to them, something has been done to them. So
What do you
really,
mean?
I think it has
Crime?
clipped.
Are
I
you
mean,
saying a political
let me
crime?
say like
There's some political
partisan.
twist to it.
It's colored. You know, this thing that the whole
Delta
vigilante
Force is
thing
associated
exactly
with
is
MPP,
supposed to be
so it
associated with
has
a
some-
political party and all of that. So you had Kennedy Japan coming out to say nothing should happen to them. This, they shouldn't be touched, but they've been tried, and something has been done against them. So I think to an extent their wings have also been clipped, and we see their demeanor. They have calmed down. So would it serve as a deterrent to other vigilante groups? Yes, because end of the day, rule of law will be allowed to work.
Well, as for remorse, it's relative. I mean, look, when the Munche 3 happened, people said, oh, they had shown remorse. Some of us said, I mean, as for remorse, it's you know, and it's amazing how when the tides change, you know, and how people on the different sides look at it. Because I can recollect some MPP apparatchiks saying that, well, how are you judging remorse? And now they say, okay, the people have shown remorse. How are we judging remorse right now? I mean,
but even the Munche 3, it did send a signal out there. You don't find people on radio going on and
Speaking
on
just
anymore.
anyhow,
No.
anyway. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, definitely. I mean, because, well, you may not get a president, you know, remitting your sentence. So, hey, that's a totally
you
different
very
thing.
well may as
so, you may, but I mean, is it a risk you want to take? You know, but if I was in a
Anyway.
political party and I asked for paying for me, that's one. You can be as sure as night follows day that you always get somebody to pay for you to be free.
Anyway, perhaps their wives or husbands or whoever will also want to pay for them because they are more productive outside in the space than in a prison. So people might even borrow if they have to borrow to pay for these ones. Yes, so that's been the discussion on the Delta Force 13 or the Delta 13. We are sustaining discussions. Ghanaians are aware or alert. We are waiting to hear the full haul of this case. We want to know what happened to the 8, and we want to know the substantive punishment that will be meted out for the actual crime itself. That's been it on Big Bang 1. We'll take a break. We are sponsored by Tinatet Herbal, producers of Tinatet Tomac, as well as Fenicure, and Grand Rice Company, producers of Leap tomato paste with no size. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. In Big Bang 2, we're talking about the fiat by President Akufo-Addo to his ministers this week when he met them. He asked that they do not purchase any more cars, and no matter how derelict the car is, that those cars be used, and that they will not be allowed to purchase their vehicles at the end of their term, as has been the practice. I think that we also heard the minority say, well, it's like bolting the stable after the horse has left, and that some ministries have already purchased cars. So really, there isn't much to it. I guess that's the discussion.
Yeah, I guess if really it's feasible and sustainable, it's a laudable one, because it really doesn't augur well for the country that every 3 years when the car has been used and they think the members of parliament or the minister who used it can buy it, then it means you're taking away cars from the pool, and then we have to replace them, as it were. But if these cars, sometimes people use cars up to 6 years and they're in pretty good shape.
8,
So
9,
yes,
10.
so really, if after 3 years you think even there are few problems and you have to, do some maintenance works to keep it running for another 4 or 5 years, why not? So that we save some money in the national coffers instead of always revamping and rebuying that. But for the
Why is the minority saying that this is coming
That's
late?
what I was coming
Are
to.
they not the ones who just left offices as ministers? And did former President Mahama not actually issue the same fiat, asking that state-owned vehicles should not be purchased for whatever reason?
I don't think so. I don't think there was a fiat like that. I think there has been the practice where when there's a new regime all the time, new cars are bought because people buy their cars. It's not new with this, group. If they were to buy cars, it has been the practice. What may be new is that he has asked them that they would use the old ones. But we know that yes, some 1 or 2 ministers have bought cars before the how would I put it, edict came out, or before that directive came out. They've come to explain whether we buy that explanation or not. But the point has been that, well, if you are saying this now, some people have bought cars already, so it really doesn't matter. But
to me, it matters.
You can say that. I mean, somebody will say, wait.
And I'll explain why it matters. Because the fact that you have already bought it doesn't mean the others too now can. It holds so many other people who were going to buy it anyway.
So
that's fine.
If Mahama at any point in time did not put a ban on buying of state-owned cars, when these people came out to say cars are missing and all of that,
I don't recollect that he ever came out to say that. No, I don't think so, because I don't think that, because that is why it's a novelty.
No, it's not a novelty. It's not.
No, because he never said that they could not buy their cars when they finish, or when
they were leaving office.
When they're leaving office, because it's been a practice that has been
yes,
there.
it's not just, and indeed, this one I'm so certain, because I heard NPP people coming out to say that what they are doing is going against the directives of the former president, who had just admonished them not to buy state-owned vehicles when they are leaving office. This is not a novelty. This is not the first time I'm hearing. So for me, when I heard it, I was like, oh. But I think President Mahama also issued out the statement.
So the problem will be, if President Mahama did say it wasn't enforced. So now that it's actually going to be enforced, will be the novelty
then
in
we
it.
could also say that we'll see whether it to be enforced.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when it actually takes
are we looking
place,
at passing it as an act in Parliament or something? Is
Well,
it going to be a
I
criminal
don't think
offense?
there's a law that says that they can take their cars. I think that it's been a practice. And some of these practices over time become like a traditional thing, like a tradition.
Yeah, but where a directive has come before,
but I don't think
and that
there's
directive
a law
was
that
not
says that,
enforced.
because if there's a law, he cannot then give a
No,
directive
I
against
don't
the law.
we're not talking about a law here. I'm saying that there was an earlier directive, to the very best of my memory, saying that people leaving office should not purchase and all of that, and looks like it was flouted. And President Akufo-Addo is also coming to give the same directive. How different will his one be if there's no enforceability? It will
so
still be.
there definitely has to be moving from just saying it to actually putting measures in place
to ensure that someone who buys it becomes an offense to buy, a state-owned vehicle.
But even that, there's a caveat to it. It's not a total thing. There's a caveat. They say that if you actually do need a vehicle, you can write to the chief of staff, and then justify why you need to buy a vehicle. So it's not an absolute. There's a caveat to
justify
it.
why you want to buy a state-owned vehicle.
Yeah, but I mean, if you are using state money, so it will be state-owned, definitely.
No.
I mean, yes.
I'm saying you want to justify why you want to buy the state-owned vehicle that you have.
No. If you want to buy new vehicles, because they put a ban on.
That clarification needed to be made, because I thought you meant for the individual.
So if you need a vehicle, you can write to the chief of staff to justify, and then you may be allowed. Hopefully that will not be abused, because as for justifying
but if you need a vehicle and you have the money, go out there and buy a vehicle.
That would be if it's a personal one, right?
There are caveats to everything, and where there's like
this is not you cannot. This is the public purse. So if you need
Chrissy is talking about the personal one, where an individual has used a car for more than 3 years and wants to purchase it for him or herself. So that one, yes. I'm thinking before you came to. If you never came to Parliament, wouldn't you have bought a car? You would have. So why don't you go out there and buy the regular car that every other person is buying against this one?
Parliamentarians are different, because parliamentarians get a loan to buy their cars.
Right, and it can't be a car other than a state-owned car.
So parliamentarians really don't have state-owned cars unless they are ministers. So it's a different thing.
Parliamentarians. I'm talking about ministers.
No, but you said parliamentarians.
Okay, sorry.
You meant the ministers.
To say ministers, yes. If you are giving a loan to buy a car, could it be another car other than a state-owned car? That's my question.
No. If you're giving a loan, it becomes your own.
Exactly. So then, then they should let them go out there, because you're paid. All of us buy cars through our own means. You don't have to solicit from your, say, company necessarily to buy a company's car that has been working for 3 years that you think is not
but you get what I mean. But the thing is that, I mean, at a certain point in time, those cars will be sold. And so if they're...
And so we wait until when they really need to be sold, and they are sold to everybody, the whole country.
No, so then... But
of course, they should be given first place, where if they are in the position,
how is that going to work?
They
because
do it.
When those cars do get old, they are auctioned off.
But it's not necessarily 3 years. You get what we are saying? The time limits to it, where it's 3 years, 3 years. A car may be
but
very
did he say 3 years?
Yes.
He mentioned 3 years.
Yes, in that case, when you say he, who are
the
you
president. I'm talking about the president, because we're talking about...
I'm saying the old rule. I'm talking about the rule that has pertained in the house, where after 3 years of having used the car, then they purchase it. If you are leaving office and you wanted it, then they
you don't leave office after 3 years. So it could be that you...
If that car had been in use
No,
for more than 3 years.
But you don't necessarily have to be 3 years. Let's say that you are minister for sports and you were leaving the sports ministry because the president has decided that go to interior or something like that, and then you have the opportunity to buy. It may not necessarily be 3 years. You understand? I mean, and what we need to come to as a country is this something we want to do? Do we say we are buying cars and putting them in a pool for people, so it's not anybody's particular car, and then you want a 4-wheel, you go to the pool. You want you go to the pool. At any point in time, there's the pool car. When it comes to, so it's not the person's car that they're using, so that they don't have first right of buying it. I mean, we can look at best practices all over and choose what is best for a country that is, leaking from the public purse, and we are in dire straits, financial dire straits. So I think that we need to really sit and think it through and see what we want to put into place, so that, I mean, it's not abused whatsoever.
Again, so law enforcement. I mean, this is an unspoken law. But if the president really wants to see that his ministers, I'm just hoping once the president says it, then he's thinking in good faith. I mean, out of respect for his vision, or some people will just buy into the idea and not do it. But we know we're human beings, we're all fallible. So definitely there has to be some rules to regulate the buying of these cars. And like they said, if they put a caveat where you have to sign for or write a petition, as it were, for justifying why you need a car, so be it. Definitely, if you have a good reason, they would allow you. But if you don't, then you wouldn't get that car for that ministry or whatever. But if we do put some mechanisms to have a pool, I think it solves a lot of these issues. If there's a V8 available when you have to go for whatever trips, let's say outside Accra, you are allowed. Why not? Then you go pick it, it's fueled, you take it away and come back. My problem with the car issue, let me go, when I mentioned fueling, I have a big issue why the fueling part, it extends to, I mean, we abuse it. You see people driving ministers' cars which are not supposed to be work. To the best of my knowledge, this is how I see it. The state-owned vehicles are to work for the state. So if a minister is going on special duties and he's giving that car, then he uses it. But when I see state-owned vehicles being paraded in certain areas, then I'm wondering, what exactly are you doing here as a state-owned vehicle? And then I feel that's abuse of power. So
what if that minister is in that area?
Very well. I mean, Susan, you and I know there may be those dire situations, but sometimes where you see this vehicle, you are very sure, and you can even see, I mean, the people in it, so you know that the minister is not there at the time. Even if he's being sent, it's not only state-owned, like government vehicles in general. I'm extending this to the larger platform, where you see police cars, military cars being, I don't know about the military,
police
sorry, let me not push it.
I said a police car with a mattress on top of it. And what's it called, shoe racks and all of that, and the thing was on, and he was asking us to go. I was like,
you see, so exactly, that's abuse of power, because you know
because it could be the policemen are moved all the time. And
yes,
when
why,
they move,
so why can't you move?
It's like a different thing from
saying abuse. No, I'm talking about the abuse. It all extends into when they abuse the privileges or the certain things they enjoy in that position. Sometimes we overextend, like your family. You are the only person who went into parliament. I don't see how it flips into your whole family. No, I'm talking about general, like ministers, parliaments, people in authority generally who are giving state-owned property GV registered plates, and it's at a nightclub. Like, it doesn't.
Are you saying the minister can't go to a nightclub?
He can't go with a state-owned because that's not state duty. You are not going to the nightclub unless he's going to enforce security. Like Minister of Interior. I think that there are certain things
that you, depending on your conditions of service, that if they give you a car, if they give you a car and they say you cannot use it for private, it's stated. And if they give you a car that you can use, there are certain TV cars, depending on your hierarchy, you can use it for your personal use.
I would want to think that is possible, but majority, like a police, like Prissy is citing. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't mention certain examples, but you do see them in doing certain things that you know breaches the law. Secondly, unofficial. I mean, and you can't put them together. I think we should streamline certain things.
I mean,
government car is state-owned vehicle.
If you see a police car at a nightclub, it could be that there's an incident.
That one I understand. But if it's a government,
but you don't know.
I mean, they should not abuse power. That's my only. They should be lenient in how they should know that people are watching.
No, do we have a logistics management team for some of these things? That's the best thing. We need to have a proper logistics management who are monitoring pool cars, which is supposed to be for official use. Because you see, even if we don't have that team in place, you would have somebody who has an urgent duty and there'll be no car available because the car is gone any and everywhere. So we need a proper logistics management team who will manage the pool cars supposed to serve the various ministries, agencies, and and departments.
And that will solve a lot of the issues.
I'm too sexy for my shirt, too sexy for my shirt, so sexy it hurts.
Hello Ghana and welcome to the Easter edition of your favorite show hosted by females, captured by women. Today we have lined up for you very interesting topics. We'll be looking at the Easter celebrations and whether we should learn to commercialize it as is done in foreign countries. We'll look at safety. We'll also talk about tourist sites and protecting them so that we don't have any disasters during this interesting time. Then we'll also look at the vigilante group who has been making news all week. Delta Force, now known as the Delta 13. We know they escaped from the court sometime and they reported themselves back to the police and were arraigned before court sometime this week. We'll look at, is it a situation that they're too grounded to be uprooted? As it is said, are they too rooted to be uprooted? We'll look at that. Then finally, we'll also talk about President Akufo-Addo's ban on buying state vehicles.
I'm too sexy for my shirt, too too sexy for my shirt, so sexy it hurts.
Hello Ghana and welcome to the Easter edition of your favorite show hosted by females, captured by women. Today we have lined up for you very interesting topics. We'll be looking at the Easter celebrations and whether we should learn to commercialize it as is done in foreign countries. We'll look at safety. We'll also talk about tourist sites and protecting them so that we don't have any disasters during this interesting time. Then we'll also look at the vigilante group who has been making news all week. Delta Force, now known as the Delta 13. We know they escaped from the court sometime and they reported themselves back to the police and were arraigned before court sometime this week. We'll look at, is it a situation that they're too grounded to be uprooted? As it is said, are they too rooted to be uprooted? We'll look at that. Then finally, we'll also talk about President Akufo-Addo's ban on buying state vehicles when members of parliament are leaving office. We want to see, is this sustainable? Is it even feasible, to say the least? We have been proudly sponsored by Tinatet Herbal, producers of Tinatet Turmeric Mixture and Venicare, as well as Grand Rice Food Company Limited, producers of Leap Tomato Paste. I am Nanama, and today I'm in studio with Priscilla and Susan. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.